Hey, it's Anna here. I wanted to pause for a second and have a grief education conversation around consider not doing and what's helpful to do. Often in the workshops that I facilitate, some of the common questions that come up is what do we say and what do we do when we are assisting someone who's grieving. And so there are some suggestions that I would like for you to consider not doing. I have four really objectives around things that you can consider not doing. And one of those things is handing a tissue. It is thought that when you hand a person a tissue who is crying, there's a subliminal message that goes along with the handing of the tissue, which really means stop crying. And though this is an act of courtesy and compassion, or at least appears to be that way, very often we, the person who's handing the tissue, is uncomfortable with the emotions of the griever, and handing the tissue incites the notion that you would like for them to stop crying. Ultimately, we think we're helping them, but in actual fact, those natural emotions that are a response to loss and grief are very helpful to come up and come out. It can very much be a part of the journey of the healing process. The second thing is touch. Very often we want to embrace someone when they're crying or weeping, and it's a natural response to want to help the person by embracing them, but in actual fact, like the tissue, it stops the emotional process in that moment. And we want those emotions again to come up and come out, so we want to stay away from actually touching the person. And even when you're prepared or they're prepared to be touched, you want to always ask permission to give the person a hug. There's nothing wrong with the hug in general. It's just that in that moment when someone is grieving a loss, touching can stop the emotional response to the loss. And if we're going to move to a place where we begin to normalize the fact that there are sad moments in our life, and that the emotions of tears are actually healthy. The third thing would be talking. Very often people will want to just share in their grieving experience with those around them. And so they begin to talk about those experiences. And again, oftentimes the listener is uncomfortable with the conversation. So the listener will begin to talk. And so the thing that I would suggest is just listen as the griever talk. The fourth thing would be, even when they're talking, as you're listening and you begin to want to respond, remember that it's okay to allow silence and not change the subject as the person is expressing their emotions around grief. So once again, you don't want to change the subject. What you want to do is stay present. So the four things that I am suggesting that you consider not doing is handing a tissue, touching, talking, and changing the subject. The four things that I recommend that would be helpful to do, that is having a tissue available for the griever to utilize when they're ready. They'll reach for the tissue and dry their tears. No physical touch. And when you do, you want to ask for permission to touch someone who's grieving. The third thing is listen as someone is speaking. And as you listen, don't change the subject when you begin to talk. You want to stay present. Many times when someone is grieving and they're talking about their grieving experiences, I've heard people change the subject, and even I've done it, and begin to talk about our own grieving experience. We want to listen and stay present in that moment. So I hope this is helpful. This is just a snippet of some of the things we do in our grief education workshops that we facilitate. We dive much deeper than this 3-minute, 4-minute conversation. But grief education is so critical in how we care for those around us who may be grieving, understanding what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say. So I will come back again with some other suggestions. And also, as you think about this, consider some of the things you have done and what's healthy to do as you realize that grief is a normal and natural response to significant loss of any kind, and 100% of every human will experience grief. This is Anna at ALW Coaching. We'll chat real soon now. Bye-bye.